All right, it's 10:20, so I don't think we can wait any longer. Good morning, everyone. Thank you so much for joining today. This meeting, Dr. Hall has asked us to convene a meeting we can update the legislature in terms of what we're doing in our phase two reopening plans. We know your constituents will have questions and want to make sure you're informed and you know what your state institution, the second largest institution in city of Memphis, behind the U of M, want to make sure you know what we're doing and that we can ask and answer any questions that you have during this time. So I'm just going to kick it over to Dr. Hall, President of Southwest Tennessee Community College, to give a welcome.
Thank you so much, Sherman, and thank you for being here. Welcome. We are so happy that you have joined us today, and we are looking forward to sharing with you everything that we've done. It seems like it's been 6 years when it's only been 6 months. We started, just to give you a little context, we started in February. We started paying attention to what was happening globally because we had to make decisions about our students that study abroad. And we really paid attention to what other colleges were doing, not only statewide, but nationally. And then the decision was made to not send our students overseas because we just didn't know. And we're so happy that we didn't send them overseas because um, March, March happened. And it hit us hard immediately. We had two students in our rad tech program. Uh, During their clinical rotations, they were exposed to COVID. So we got a crash course in how to shut down a building and do extensive cleaning and get it ready. So this was early March. And then when around spring break, that was when I think colleges all over the country had the same conversation. What do we do? This is really not looking good at all. And it's not something that's just going to go away. We need to prepare. And so that was what we did. Spring break, after spring break, faculty came back, staff came back, and in 1 week, moved everything online. And if you think about higher ed and how slowly we tend to move sometimes, that was miraculous in and of itself to move everything online in 1 week. And so that's where we've been, going virtual. We never closed, and that was something that we wanted to make sure that we tell the community we have not closed. Some buildings have closed, true enough, but the business of the college has continued, and that's what you're going to hear today. I have my colleagues on the call, and they will give you an update on what we've been doing. And we have a COVID task force that has met weekly to talk about all of the different areas of academics, student affairs, just all of the things that we could think of. Again, this has been really an unusual year for everyone, and with higher ed, and well, everyone, I suppose, there's no playbook. So when we've had other things that occur, we could call colleagues at other colleges to say, so how did you all handle this? But with a pandemic, there is no playbook. No one knows what to do. So we all have to figure it out together. So I'm really proud of the work that we've done. We're not perfect, not saying that we are perfect, but I think that what we've done, you will see it's been a lot of detail, extensive planning and preparation, to make sure that all of our faculty, staff, and students and eventual guests will be safe. So again, welcome to our legislative town hall. We don't look at the number of people on a call because everyone's important to us at Southwest. So we're happy that you've joined us today, and I look forward to sharing information with you, and then we'll allow time for questions and answers. So I turn it over to Vice President of Student Affairs, Jacqueline Faulkner.
Good morning. I am excited about the opportunity to share with you how we as a college, but particularly in the Division of Student Affairs, were able to pivot as at the onset of the pandemic so that we could continue to support our students remotely. Next slide, please. Next slide, please. What is important to note is despite the pandemic, despite having to move to remote services back in March, the needs of our students did not change. The population of students that we serve did not change. So what was very important is that the quality of the wraparound support that we have always provided to our students continued, and that they continued to be supported in a co-curricular fashion so that they could be successful and meet their academic goals. So back in March, we moved all of our essential support services to a remote environment, and will continue in that manner through fall 2020. And so as you will hear from my colleague, Dr. Hooker, about academic affairs shortly and the plans for this semester, we also continue to support students in the same fashions, the same quality wraparound support throughout the fall while virtual learning happens. And one of the things that we were able to do early on is to work with our partners in marketing and communications to develop an entire separate, if you will, site so that students knew how to navigate and how to assess the important services online. Next slide, please. So what I'm going to do is walk through the past 5 months and how we have been able to accelerate efficiencies. We had some early challenges, largely because we have always operated in a primary brick and mortar fashion. So the ability to immediately transition all of the services that we've done in a brick and mortar fashion to a virtual environment was phenomenal, and it was a huge undertaking, but we believe that we've done a great job in ensuring that students continue to get those services. So one of the immediate things that we had to address was the ability to respond to students' real-time calls. As you know, it was very, we could not just immediately take all of our telephones and the telephone routing that happens on campus home. So we work with IT as a student-centered solution to deploy cell phones to all of our student affairs employees. In the middle of a pandemic, particularly when students have heightened anxiety, it's important that they get a real person and not just a voicemail that says, I will return your call, or to email me. Our students are what we consider very high touch. So they are accustomed to being able to go into someone's office and have a conversation. So it was important that we were able to deploy cell phones so that students could get real-time individuals when they call the campus. We also experienced, needless to say, a suspension of all campus-based testing. Previously, students were placed into their college level courses based upon the ACT, SAT, or the AccuPlacer, some form of a placement score. Well, with campus-based testing being suspended across the country, ACT and SAT tests being canceled, we had to look at a means of how can we continue to place students based upon their readiness for college level work. And what we were able to do is at the state level, Tennessee Board of Regents introduced and approved a multiple measures pilot. What we have known for a long time is that those placement tests are not an accurate predictor of college readiness or college success. And so we were able to look at data from a statewide level to see that students really were succeeding regardless of their ACT, SAT, or AccuPlacer scores based upon their high school GPA. And so we're excited about this pilot and are looking forward to being able to continue with this pilot of allowing us to place students based upon their high school GPA of a 2.8 or better. Another early challenge that we had to address is, again, we operate in a brick and mortar fashion. We were accustomed to telling students to bring in documents, to come in to see us, to bring in hard signed copies. And though those forms are still very important, the documents are still very important, we had to grow in a very, in a very quick fashion with the way in which our students want to operate and want to submit these documents. So we moved to dynamic forms where students could actually submit the forms in real time, or they could directly upload through the portal. And I jokingly shared with students as we introduced this new student-centered solution is that we know that they do not own a scanner. So it's important that we allow them to take a picture of that document and send it to us, and to still be able to count that as a form that we've received that will allow them to be admitted and to enroll. We also had some early challenges with dual enrollment students. We had upwards of about 1,000 dual enrollment students, primarily out of Shelby County schools. And as we know, Shelby County Schools over the past several months has taken steps, as well as we have, to address the technology needs of our student population. Well, in March, when we immediately moved to a virtual environment, that was a concern for many of our dual enrollment students who did not have the technology at the time at home in order to complete their dual enrollment classes. And so we did some very innovative partnering between academic affairs, student affairs, and Shelby County Schools to still help meet the needs of those students, and that no student, because of technology requirements, failed their courses. But our faculty were very agile. They allowed students to, again, to take pictures of assignments, to text message assignments. We were very crafty in how we served our students to still ensure that they met the competencies to receive credit for both their enrollment in high school and in college. And as most of you know, across the country, we saw traditional commencements be postponed or canceled. In higher education, commencement is the hallmark event of what we do, because it's a culminating experience for the hard work and efforts of our students and our faculty. And it was very hard pressed, but this year, for the first time, we held a historic virtual commencement on Saturday, June 13th. A wonderful way to honor our students' accomplishments, and a way to still acknowledge their hard work. We also had to figure out a means in order to address the high touch needs of our students. I mentioned before that our students are very accustomed to going into offices, being able to have that one-on-one support. We've built a very successful model through our Achieving the Dream work over the past 4 years that deals with case management. So our students want to meet with their advisor, they want to meet with their counselor, they want to meet with their financial aid specialist regularly. And so what we were able to do in order to create a student-centered solution was, again, to leverage similar technologies that we're using right here today in order to continue to support students in that fashion. We also increased our availability of telehealth to address mental health needs. We hired 3 years ago a mental health counselor who meets the needs of our students, but we've seen a heightened amount of anxiety with our students and stressors that our students we've seen an increase of those appointments associated with mental health. So we've leveraged a telehealth opportunity to ensure that their students' needs are still met. We also have virtual, could you go back, please? We also have virtual academic support. So students who are experiencing difficulty in their classes can actually receive academic support in a virtual manner, and we're utilizing Teams and Zoom to do counseling appointments and advising appointments. Advanced slide, please. The imperative before us. We have done a great deal of work to ensure that we are continuing to support students through the pandemic. But one thing that we cannot contribute for are those concerns that students are experiencing as a result of the pandemic, the fears that they're experiencing as a result of the pandemic. We've just recently become knowledgeable of the disconnections that are happening, the evictions that are happening in Shelby County. And we know that as an institution that serves about a 60% population of students who are Pell Grant eligible, which means that they live below the poverty line, that those numbers represent some of our students. So despite all of our best efforts, one of the concerns that we're having in the imperative that's before us deals with enrollment, is that if you look at our day one, which was yesterday enrollment, from a head count stance, we are about 21% down year over year. We have close to 7,000 students, whereas we had about 8,800 last year. And from FTE, we're down about 19%. Advanced slide, please. So I talked about earlier that just the infrastructure building to ensure that we could continue to serve students. But what I want to talk about are a few things that we've done to move from infrastructure to innovation in addressing that imperative. We have fully implemented some technology tools that are life cycle tools that help students to monitor their progress toward completion, utilizing data analytics and a progress monitoring tool. We also created online new student orientations and virtual new student orientations, which allowed for students who wanted to operate in a synchronous manner and still be able to speak to their advisors real time. We've also moved to a fully online appeals process. Again, this was traditionally a process where students had to go before individuals in a face-to-face format, bring documents. We've moved that to a fully online process. I talked earlier about concerns with essential services having to come to campus to do transcript processing. We've now launched e-transcripts where our students can actually request transcripts and they are delivered in an electronic format to whatever organization within 24 hours of the request. We also added academic support with paired supplemental instruction to ensure that students who are experiencing difficulty navigating online learning will actually have a different layer of support with a supplemental instruction who will lead lessons outside of that with the professor to ensure that the student understood the content. We've also done contractual relationships with Smart Thinking, which is a virtual tutoring third-party organization, which offers 24/7, 365 days a week, 365 days of the year tutoring for students. So we have many students who are multiple role. They're full-time employees, full-time parents, full-time students. So oftentimes they are not engaging with their classwork until midnight when most of our academic support operations are closed. So this allows them to still get access to those resources 24/7, 365. We also added Registration Express, whereas students could come through virtual meeting rooms to actually be advised and enrolled in courses real time. One that is very important to note is the increased funding for emergency grants for our students. I talked about the life situations that our students are facing currently, and it was important that we leveraged a part of the CARES funding that we received as an institution to be able to provide emergency grants for students who are facing extenuating circumstances as a result of this pandemic. And lastly, we've added virtual office hours, not only with financial aid, but all of our offices. Next slide, please. And lastly, we are currently involved in an on-campus fall registration, shameless plug. So we are still very much helping students enroll and be admitted. And what we know again is that many students, despite all of the online efforts and the virtual opportunities, still needed to see a real person. So we have a full slate of all of our front-facing student offices that are on campus this week and were on campus last week to meet those students' needs to enroll this fall. Thank you. And I think I will turn it over to my colleague, Dr. Kendricks Hooker, Vice President of Academic Affairs.
Thank you, VP Faulkner. Good morning, everyone. As mentioned, my name is Kendricks Hooker, and I have the privilege of serving as the Vice President of Academic Affairs. This morning, I look forward to briefly sharing information regarding our Back to Campus plan, the instructional modalities that we plan to use, and the support for faculty and students as they all operate, for the most part, remotely. This pandemic has given Southwest the opportunity to reimagine course offerings in new ways. As Dr. Hall mentioned, in March, we had to quickly shift all of our instruction online. Our faculty and students did an amazing job of adjusting and adapting. As VP Faulkner stated, The faculty and students were very crafty and flexible in working with in completing their courses, because many of our students and faculty, for the most part, working remotely was new to all of them. So this flexibility and being able to work with students was much appreciated. Now, at that time, we knew that it would be extremely difficult for all of our classes to be taught online exclusively, because many of our career and technical educational courses simply require some face-to-face instruction. So since March, we have been very thoughtful in our planning to support students in reaching their academic goals. One of the first things that we did is we created a year-long schedule. And some of the features of that year-long schedule is that for the fall and the spring, we have a 15-week schedule that offers online classes only. In addition to that, we have 13-week courses, as well as 2 6-week flex schedules that offer courses in the hybrid modality, which combines online and face-to-face instruction. And then toward the end of the semester and the beginning of the spring semester, we will also have a 4-week and a 3-week winter session with online courses only. Now, fortunately, we were able to provide our students with the opportunity to assess campus back in this summer. So on July 8th, we had a soft opening at our Macon and Union campuses, in which the majority of our class offerings were online. However, some of the spring courses that were not completed and required face-to-face instruction was brought to completion, and summer courses that had lab-based or skill-based components were able to be taught in the hybrid modality. For this fall and perhaps beyond, we have now moved into what we call our phase 2. In phase 2, face-to-face instruction and assessment will resume for students to complete lab-based and career and technical courses, with some general education courses taking place at our Macon campus, Union campus, Maxine Smith, and Whitehaven. We will continue to offer what we deem to be lecture courses. We will continue to offer those online for the most part in some capacity. For phase 2 this fall, as I mentioned, the majority of our courses will be online or hybrid. If we compare fall 19 to fall 2020, in fall 19, 19.4% of our courses were online and nearly 81% were ground courses. Well, for this fall, 89% of our courses are online or hybrid, with only 11% being on ground. So that was a significant shift to ensure that we were able to, as mentioned earlier, pivot and allow online offerings for our students. Now, to ensure that we were not only efficient and effective in teaching our students remotely, all faculty were required and have completed their online training certification. So 100% of our faculty have completed this online training to facilitate the learning remotely. Now, with the different types of instructional modalities, the various time frames or parts of terms for students to start their classes, and with the schedule for the entire academic year, we believe our students are able to fit Southwest into their lives anywhere and anytime. With all of our courses being online in some capacity, we needed to address the digital divide and make sure our students were equipped to learn virtually. As a result, many of our students will be equipped virtually, as we have purchased 3,500 laptops that are being distributed to students for the most part last week, but we will continue to do this week at our Macon campus. In addition to that, we are in the process of extending our Wi-Fi or wireless capabilities into the parking lots. So soon, Wi-Fi will be available in the parking lots at our Macon, Union, Whitehaven, Maxine Smith, and Guild campuses. In an effort to continue to provide our students with as much support as we possibly can, our library will continue to provide great service to our students. While the physical locations are closed, our librarians will continue to support our students remotely. On our website, the students can access that and they can chat with some of our librarians and be able to access a number of digital resources to provide additional support. In addition, I think VP Faulkner alluded to the fact that there are virtual office hours for advising, where our faculty are doing the exact same thing. So faculty are posting and hosting virtual office hours to meet their students and address any concerns or needs that our students might have. And lastly, our computer labs are available to students as well at our Union campus and Macon campus, and they're staffed to support our students. So I think with providing support from the library, faculty being available to meet our students, and then having the computer labs accessible for our students, we should be able to provide our students with everything that they need to work remotely. So that's my brief update, and I look forward to addressing any questions that you might have. I believe now I will pass the mic to Anita Bracken to share some information regarding workforce and continuing education.
Good morning. I would just like mirroring all of the others, when we got to COVID, our side of the college is just like credit. We were not closed, so then it became the what do we do next? So as we were transitioning our classes over to online, some of our hands-on classes just delaying, we knew that we needed to do something for the community. There were a lot of people who were hurting during this time, a lot of businesses that were on hold. So we were able to craft together 10 free business and professional development courses that we were able to offer through May and June. We really wanted to focus on the skill sets that would help a business owner maybe have some time to do some of the things they had not done before, such as creating web pages, but also a little bit of professional and personal development, because we knew there were job seekers out there. And so resume development, personal finance, and effective communication, because we know a lot of people may be in the interview opportunities are in that time. So as you can see, we had over 18,000 enrollments. This was an amazing way for us to introduce Southwest to, I'm sure, thousands of community citizens that had not engaged with Southwest. And as I like to say, many of these individuals had likely never done an online course before. So as we're transitioning the college to online, what I hope it did was kind of ease some of them into it and realize they can do it 24 hours a day in many of these courses. So I'm really excited about the outreach and the community support. And from what we hear, a lot of networking between individuals in the classes. They had live chat sessions, and some of them have gotten business from each other out of it. So we think that was a great resource. Next slide. So you've heard us talk about reimagining and redesigning the old RT program, and we're still going to call it that as we transition, but that is now Southwest Works. And I think now more than ever, this program is going to be essential to our community as we transition individuals from careers that may be going away to new careers. So of course we have the essential skills, but as we've enhanced the program, we're really focusing on what is a certificate or credential that they can walk away with, so that a business owner or wherever they're applying will know that they've gone beyond just, soft skills, how to get along with each other, conflict resolution, teamwork. So we are adding more certificates in there. And as we work through the program, what we're focusing on is that they continue to enhance their skills beyond Southwest Works. So showing them the pipeline to either additional non-credit certificates, but always engaging them and encouraging them to come back to Southwest to complete a degree. Next slide. So what we've done differently this time is add different sectors. Originally, RT was developed around manufacturing, but we know there are a lot of industries that have the same needs as manufacturing, bringing in new employees with the essential skills and entry-level technical skills to advance in their career. So these 4 courses have actually been added to the Workforce Investment Network individual training account list so that our community citizens have a financial resource to enroll in these programs. But I think like we saw 7 or 8 years ago, we're going to see a big uptick in these programs as our industries begin to upsize. So we will be adding more sectors to this. And again, looking for individuals to be encouraged to do this 6 to 8 week program that will prepare them for the workforce. Next slide. So we continue to do the work that we've done online, on campus, on site, at businesses, and of course hybrid, blending our technical skills with our online, introducing the students to different ways of learning. This is a couple of examples of some things that we've done this summer. Shelby County Schools did a large group in information technology applications, and we'll be continuing to work with them over the year. Continue to do National Career Readiness Certificate training for a number of the companies that utilize that test for their applicants. We're going out to companies and doing technical skill assessments. We have training equipment that we take to them. So really emphasizing we can do this, many of our programs anywhere. Continue to support our medical device companies with custom programs. And of course, utilizing local, state, and federal grants to do much of our work, and have been the beneficiary of a nice Department of Labor grant for apprenticeships in cybersecurity, working on an application for another Department of Labor grant for short-term credential programs. And yesterday on a call with Dr. Kenyatta Lovett, very interested in a reimagining workforce programs that Department of Education has put forward, which would bring more dollars into our community for these short-term programs. Right now, we know we need to put people to work, and that is our focus. And every day we're just so excited to be able to support Southwest in this realm of workforce and community solutions. So thank you for your time today.
Thank you so much. We'll now move to VP Mike Neal, Administration and Finance. And
Thanks.
Representative Cooper is with us as well. She's on the line, so she's listening in as well.
Thank you very much, Chairman. Thanks everybody for joining us. I'm going to be brief. I'll touch on three areas here. Let me start with campus safety. Dr. Hooker mentioned that we did start with our phase 1 back on July 8th. And that gave us a great opportunity to implement what we learned, just implement kind of a basis from which to launch from to go into phase 2, which started on August the 24th. But with phase 1, we set up a structure that we're now leveraging that set the basis for us to be successful, I hope, and we've shown that success during phase 1 to bring a very safe environment for our students, Faulkner, and staff. So with that, what we decided to do, as Dr. Hooker said, we control the access to campus. So we started that with just a course design, as Dr. Hooker said. Those are primarily career, technical, and education courses, which allows us to limit the number of persons that we actually have on campus at any one time. In addition to that, we limited the number of locations that we had. So in the summer, it was Union and Macon, and now in the fall, it's Union, Macon, Maxine, Smith, and Whitehaven. But still limiting the number of students, but also limiting the locations. And also, if you visit one of the campuses, you'll see that the traffic is structured and flowed in a certain way. So it's another way that we keep the campus safe in the sense that we don't let traffic to flow and wander, and people wander from one building to the next because they're very structured and organized. And in each of the buildings, I'll just use Union and Macon an example, only certain buildings are open. So that helps with safety as well. We only open the buildings that we're going to actually have courses in. Now, actually, prior to coming to campus, we've set up a structure whereby anyone coming to campus, students, faculty, staff, vendors, and we've been doing this since July, take a pre-screen. It's all done online. You can do it on a handheld. You can do it on a laptop. However you decide to do it, it's a pre-screen questionnaire. You fill that out, and then if you pass it, then you come to campus. And we're doing that so if anyone has any symptoms, they can get those identified at home and then take the appropriate steps, not even come to campus. So that's the first thing we do is the pre-screen. Once you arrive on campus, there are temperature checks that we have at each location. So as I said earlier, we control the traffic, and so we control the buildings, and when we know which buildings are open. And by doing that, we can funnel traffic into a certain way and set up temperature check stations at those particular locations, which we've done. When you're actually on campus, you're required to wear a face mask or some type of face covering, which has helped. And then we've also got our PPE distributed throughout all the facilities. If you actually go into one where the buildings are open, you'll see we have PPE widely available for our students, faculty, and staff. Hand sanitizers have been distributed, including touchless hand sanitizers as well. And we're certainly enforcing social distancing. And we're doing that not by just only putting out signs. You've been out to a restaurant or something, you may see a sign that says stand here, stand there. We've got that as well. But we also did that by design. So if you go into a room with computers in it, you'll see that there are computers, but they're available in only 6 feet increments. So they're actually naturally socially distanced so that you can't sit next to each other if you're one student or another student. So structurally, we put that in place as well, and been part of the social distancing. Signage we've got placed throughout all the campuses. And we're certainly leveraging technology in a number of different ways. And one of them is very creative. If you go up to any of our campuses, you'll see we have these temperature kiosks. You walk up to it, it'll give you a temperature screen. You don't have to touch anything. No one has to take your temperature. It's all done electronically and through a temperature kiosk. So all of that together is what we've done starting back in July, and now we're leveraging as we're going into phase 2 in terms of campus safety. The other point I want to touch on too is something Jackie alluded to about the fall enrollment. Clearly, Jackie noted that we're seeing somewhere about 20-21% reduction in headcount and our enrollment on a year-over-year basis. And there are several reasons why that is the case. Community colleges across the country are having a difficult time with enrollment. Some of that's due to COVID, students deciding to wait. A lot of trepidation, or probably fiscal and economic issues that they're also dealing with. And then Jackie also mentioned, there's some social and emotional issues that obviously going through a pandemic that all people deal with, especially students. So contributing factors as to why we're seeing the kind of declines that we're seeing in enrollment. For us, we're looking at the 20 to 25% range, and it's fair to say that is material for us from a revenue standpoint. Our tuition and fees in any given year on a 20 to 25% reduction, there'll be somewhere between $8 and $10 million in reduction in revenue. So we're watching that very, very closely. Jackie mentioned the steps that we're taking as an organization to try to close some of that gap. We've done that last week. We'll continue to do that this week, assisting our students. But needless to say, the impact is really material for us as an organization in terms of our revenue. And because of that, we're considering all options. We're working hard and diligently to try to grow the revenue as fast as we can through options there, looking at cost options as well. There are infrastructure things that we could do, operating costs that we can pull out. Travel, obviously, is certainly one. So we're looking at a number of different options to kind of control costs. Next slide, please. And so last thing I'll end on is, what some support that we could certainly use from the community that we're talking to today. Let me just start with a little context around some of the funding that we received, and then how we'd like to use some of that funding to get some support. First of all, we as a college received about $8.7 million between CARES and the CRF, the Coronavirus Relief Fund. And that was broken into a couple of different tranches. The CARES Act, $3.6 million of that was to provide relief to our students for the fall, which was certainly needed. So we went through that process, distributed some of those funds. As Jackie said, a certain portion of that we retained, and now providing that in emergency grants. So those dollars are certainly being used to support our students, which are desperately, desperately needed. In addition to that, there's $3.6 million that went to institutions. All those things that I talked about with respect to the back to campus plan and what we did from a safety standpoint, well, that's where many of those dollars are going. They're going to PPE, they're going for signs, they're going for enforcing social distancing. There's a lot of expense to turn an organization around the size of Southwest Tennessee Community College you make significant investments to do that, and certainly those dollars that we got from CARES from the institution have gone to support that. Dr. Hooker also mentioned that we were investing in laptops. Well, some of those dollars went to invest in some of those laptops that we have to purchase, so those dollars are going. Additionally, we got funding as a PBI, a predominantly Black institution. Use some of those same dollars in some of the areas that I mentioned before around the Back to Campus plan as well. And finally, we got $1 million in the coronavirus relief fund, which we're now deploying, and we'll use that to help us get prepared for the remainder of this year, and then also this semester, and also planning for the spring. I will say, for us as an institution, there are probably a couple of areas that would be beneficial to us in terms of being able to use some of the funds a little more flexibly. First of all, the CRF funds, the time frame on that is very limited. So for us, it's and for all institutions that got the funds, you have to place the orders and get the goods in between August and November. So that's a 90-day turnaround. And obviously, we're going to follow our own policies and procedures and TBR policies and procedures. But to spend $1 million, which is what we got out of that, in a 90-day time period, is very difficult. So a little bit of an extended window to do that was certainly beneficial. And the last one, which is the most beneficial and material, is the ability to use funding to support lost revenue. I talked earlier before that the revenue decline that we're seeing on an annualized basis is somewhere between $8 and $10 million. The ability to use some of the CARES institutional funds, or if there are additional funds that become available at a national or a state level to support revenue loss, would be very, very substantial to us and very much needed as we deal with what we're dealing with right now. And so with that being said, that is the end of the portion that I have, and I'm going to turn it back over, I believe, to Mr. Greer.
Thank you, Mike. So legislators, we really thank you for your time today. This is just a snapshot of what we're dealing with and what we want to convey to you, and some of the things that we're working towards to try and deal with this. We're also having conversations with Senator Alexander's office and his health committee about the HEALS Act. We're also communicating with Congress, Kustoff and Cohen, about the HEROES Act. Just trying to make sure we do our part to assist you as you assist us. But at this time, we're opening up for any questions that you may have. And then if there are not any questions, I know I got 3 legislators on the line right now. If there are not any questions, I'll turn it back. Go ahead, Representative Moore.
Thank you. Hey, everyone. That was a great presentation, and I am really excited about how you all have adapted despite this COVID pandemic to serve the students and ensure that they can have the best educational experience as possible in this unknown time. So congrats to all the staff at Southwest for everything you've done in such a short period of time. I do have a question, and I don't know if you answered this already, but since most of the students won't be coming back to campus, I heard 89% will be virtual. Will there be tuition readjustment since many of them won't be able to use the full extent of the college?
I can, Representative Lamar, this is Tracy Hall. I can answer that, and then I can pivot and allow VP of Finance if he has anything to elaborate, or any of the vice presidents. The short answer is no. And one of the things is, when I mentioned earlier that the buildings have closed, but the college has not. And so all of the services that we are providing, everything has gone virtual. And so it's, when we talk about Reimagine Southwest, we have actually done that. And we know, I mean, if you think about some of our competitors, they've already really gotten really good at this, proprietary schools and the virtual and online learning. And what has happened with COVID, it has really pushed us to be in a place that we probably should be anyway. And that's offering more options for online. We have large numbers of working adults, and we have been talking about how we need to meet the needs of our working adult students. COVID has accelerated those efforts. And so what we do on ground, we have moved and transitioned to an online environment. And so that looks different. Yes, it does, but we are still, our student development is still offering virtual programming. Our international education, while there will not be travel abroad, we are taking this as an opportunity to talk about a global society and to offer global opportunities virtually. One of the things that, even though when we're on ground, we've not seen the coming together of our different populations the way we could see them. But in a virtual environment, there's really no place restrictions because we're all virtually. So we have been very creative in reimagining how we teach because we don't know how long this is going to continue. So we need to make sure that students still are able to be taught, they're able to learn, they're able to take part in activities, and we've had some activities already, a virtual party. Representative Lamar, you may be familiar with D Nice, the DJ who had kind of like a quarantine party on Instagram. Well, that was something that I was very intrigued by, and so we brought that to the college, and we've had an activity similar to that. So we've tried our best to make sure that although we are online, students still receive a college experience. And if any of my colleagues would like to add to anything that I've said, please.
Representative Lamar, I would add that although 89% of our classes are online in some capacity, I can break that down even more. So specifically, about 37% of our classes are online purely, exclusively, but we have about 52% that is hybrid. And as I mentioned earlier, hybrid is online with face-to-face instruction. Now, the face-to-face instruction, we're going to see that two ways at Southwest. We're going to see it face-to-face, in which students actually come to campus. So our nursing program and many of our health programs will have this face-to-face interaction in person. The other hybrid course is going to be Microsoft Teams. So it's going to be exactly what we're doing right now, in which the instructor is meeting the students and they're having conversations like this. The students are engaged. You probably know that you can show PowerPoints. You can actually utilize this space exactly like you would do in a classroom. So this is allowing face-to-face instruction as well.
Great. Thank you so much.
You're welcome.
Can you hear me?
Go ahead, Representative Cooper. They can hear you.
Yeah, good morning to everybody, and thank you for having this multi-point surgery. My concern is, since yesterday I understand social media basically, and I wanted to know how you're assisting students who may be affected by the 30,000 families or homes with the cutoff from light, gas, and water.
I can certainly address that. We have student emergency funds through three actual sources. We have a proportion of our CARES funding, the federal funding that we received. We allocated 10% for student emergency funds. We also have a pool from what we consider access and diversity, which is through the state of Tennessee, that we have allocated about $200,000 for student emergency funds. And on top of that, we also have funds that are available through our foundation. So we are actively outreaching students and saying to them, if you have experienced any extenuating circumstance, not only as a result of COVID, I talked about the poverty level of our students being 60% Pell Grant eligible. So our students experience these concerns on a day-to-day basis. And we often use the analogy, if one of us actually go outside and encounter a flat tire, we're just looking for our AAA to come and tow the car and fix the tire. It's not that simple for our students. When our students experience that circumstance, they're making a split decision about, can I fix my car, or do I pay my rent, or do I pay MLG&W? So it's a bit different. And so we've had to actively attack the needs of our students and how poverty impacts their student success over the past several years. So we are doing the same thing and applying the same measures to this date. And we have a process where we have a social services coordinator that actually connect students to the resources that we have on campus or our local resources to be able to meet their immediate needs, but also talk about a long-term plan. Everything that we do is about education. So we're continually educating our students that how do we avoid emergencies every semester. So let's talk about a long-term plan, whether that means getting some gainful employment, doing some immediate credentials that can put you into the workforce while you come back to school, just all of the various means that we can help you create a better situation for yourself and your families.
If I could add, thank you, Jackie. If I can add to that, Representative Cooper, just stress what VP Faulkner said, that this is what we do all the time. So COVID has shown a light on the disparities that we face in our community, but we have had to address this. If you work at an urban community college in America, this is what we do on a daily basis. We cannot just focus on what happens in the classroom. We have to look at the whole student, because you can't talk about studying if someone doesn't have lights or if they're hungry. Our students experience food insecurities daily, each year, each semester. So COVID has exacerbated that, has, as I said, shown a brighter light on what our students face. But this is what we have to do. We can't just teach. We just can't think about what happens in the classroom. We have to wrap our arms figuratively and literally sometimes around our students to help them get to their goals. And that's what we've been able to do with this situation as well.
Thank you for that information. Just to follow up quickly here, then are you thinking about, since this has happened, and we know that COVID has a lot to do with a lot of our families are not working, and they're right now still not paying, taking information about claims to make sure that they get some type of compensation to be able to pay something like over food or whatever their needs are. And we many of our students are working and they can't work now. They don't have the access to light, gas, and water. Are you considering putting that on the TV or some advertisement so that all the students will know that they need to come to your office if they are affected by the light, gas, and water flow?
I think if I heard you, I think the question is how are we getting the information to students? Is that
right? Emergency aid.
Yeah, and emergency aid, and yes, and through our marketing, our communication, our student affairs, the advisors. So all of when students come in, that's if that is their need. And VP Faulkner's area of student affairs, she could talk about how students are informed, but they are well aware of the resources available to them, and they take advantage of that.
Absolutely. And we do active outreach. So we have a communications hub that comes directly through marketing, where we send out to students the available resources. We actually just sent out an entire guide on Friday to encourage students to assess resources and know about what's available to them, where we noted the emergency funds that are available. So we use a number of mediums to ensure that students are aware that we have emergency funds and that there's a process by which they can make application. Could you repeat, please?
Representative Cooper.
Thank you for that. Thank you so much.
Oh, thank you. Yes, ma'am. Thank you.
Well, Dr. Hall, there are no other questions. I'll turn it back over to you. I see Representative Town just texted he doesn't have any questions, and so I'll turn it back over to you, Dr. Hall, to close.
Okay. Well, thank you so much again for joining us today, and we are really privileged to be able to share with you what we've been doing here at the college, and just to assure you that we're doing everything we can to make sure that everyone's safe, that all of our students still have a quality educational experience. And we really want to stress to students, and we know that there are so many things going on in their lives, but what we've really tried to hone in on that messaging, that we won't let COVID-19 defeat us. They had goals and dreams prior to COVID, and we are here to help them continue on that path. And so if they're hesitant about coming to school because of whatever is going on. We want them to know that we're here for them. We're here to support them. And we thank you for being here to support us. We've appreciated your support in the past. We appreciate your support even more as we all work to get on the other side of COVID. So again, thank you so much. And thank you, Sherman, for heading and leading this effort. I appreciate you.
All right, thank you all. That's the end of this broadcast. And I failed to mention that I recorded this. So if you have any problems with me sharing it, call me and let me know before I share it. But I plan to share it with the rest of the Shelby County and Fayette County delegation. Thank you all. Have a good morning.
Okay. Thank you so much. Bye-bye.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
identify contacts and get them quarantined early. And lastly, I just want to give a few other updates on the health